Hello, everyone. Good morning. So welcome to day 2 of LA Blockchain Summit. My name is Jessica Walker, and I'm going to be taking you through today. Now, today is focused on utility of blockchain and cryptocurrencies. We're going to be covering everything from DeFi solutions to even tokenized real estate. So there's a lot that's going to be happening on this stage here. Now, we're going to kick things off with a panel on DeFi and the future of payments and what it looks like. Now, I'm going to hand it over to our fantastic moderator for today, Rachel Wolfson, who's the senior reporter for Cointelegraph, to come on board and also introduce our speakers. So let's have a big round of applause.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jessica, and thanks again to the LA Blockchain Summit organizers. It's a real pleasure to be here. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the first panel of the day. It means a lot that you guys are here so early. As Jessica mentioned, my name is Rachel Wolfson. I'm moderating this panel on DeFi and payments. I'm going to have our panelists come up now and introduce themselves. So how about we just start this way? So Muneeb, can you come up? Actually, I'll just have all the panelists come up and then have you guys introduce yourselves. Okay, Muneeb, I'll let you start with an introduction.
Hi, everyone. I'm Muneeb. I'm a co-founder of Stacks, which is a Bitcoin layer for smart contracts. So think of like taking your BTC and actually deploying it into smart contracts and doing interesting things with it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michel. I am the co-founder and CEO of Mavryk Finance, and we do real-time settlement on Solana that allows anybody to pay and run payroll in real time, second by second, anywhere in the world for free.
Hey, everyone. My name is Alex Davis. I'm the founder of Mavryk Finance, which is a vertically integrated DeFi banking ecosystem with decentralized integrated oracles and a proof-of-stake-based governance model for efficiency.
Hello, everyone. I am Benedetto Biondi. I am the CEO of Wolfson Finance, which is a lending protocol built on Algorand. I am Italian. I am an engineer, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being here so early. My name is Chiente Hsu. I am CEO and co-founder of ALEX. ALEX stands for Automated Liquidity Exchange. We are trying to build a Goldman Sachs on blockchain, but just better, more efficient, and more decentralized. Thank you.
Great. So let's get started. The panel today is about how DeFi is transforming the payments industry. So I'd first like us to start off with a discussion on how DeFi is being applied to the payments industry today, and we can focus on some real-world use cases. So whoever wants to start first, feel free to kick it off.
Well, I can start this one first. I mean, payment is hard. Payments are very, very hard for the reason that I think we all know, and that's why DeFi is here. I think about my mother-in-law. She's based in Dakar, in Senegal, in Africa. And if I want to transfer the money, I have to physically walk to a Western Union. I pay a 10% fee, and she will get the money 1 week later. And if I'm a US company, I want to transfer 100 million into a European company, my bank would initiate this transfer tomorrow, and then there will be maybe 2 or 3 banks involved in that transfer, and that European company will get the money, hopefully. A lot of things can happen in between, a week later. Blockchain and crypto solve all this, and DeFi solve all this. All the cases above I have mentioned is just about wallet. So I have a wallet, my mother-in-law has a wallet. I transfer her USDC or Bitcoin. She has it right away with a fraction of the cost. So every year, there are $2 trillion spent on transferring money across the border. This is not about risk management or innovation. These are $2 trillion spent on money transfer. And I think that's why we are here. DeFi is just a solution to be more efficient and cost really the fraction of it. And there's no counterparty risk. There's no risk about my mother-in-law have to check if I have enough money in my wallet or not. So that's what DeFi is for.
I think I can add something on this. So in my opinion, blockchain is simply perfect for financial application. And when it came to development of DeFi, obviously we were bringing primitives of finance into this permissionless, decentralized world. And that's, the first milestone. Obviously, things are going to evolve, and I think we will talk about it during this panel. Arriving to payment, obviously, as you say, it's more difficult. It requires maybe more compliance and everything, obviously. But still, we have the primitives settled down now, like on DeFi. And then it's just connecting those to, let's say, the traditional finance. And one of the reasons why we really like Algorand as chain to build on it is because they want to build this layer of finance borderless trusted by institution. So for us, building a lending protocol on it will be, this, let's say, brick of this wall to build on a DeFi permissionless finance.
So on the question of how DeFi is being used today for payments, I mean, obviously it's conducive for payments. There's no question there. In terms of payments itself, on what's happening today, it's low, but I think it's behind the scenes of where everything's moving forward. So with everything, with our team being distributed across the entire globe with Mavryk, we've got team members or contributors in Paris, Singapore, Tel Aviv, Dubai, Belarus, amongst other places in the world. And we make all of our payments via crypto, 100% via crypto. So, and actually the vast majority prefer USDT instead of fiat, just because how easy it is to transfer across the world. So I don't think that the mainstream institutional payments has really moved forward on DeFi. Like theoretically, you can get your paycheck via Coinbase, but that is as far away from DeFi as possible. But I think right now it's more of this on-the-ground grassroots type of getting startups started and making payments across the world that is where DeFi is actually being used today.
I always like to point out, a small differentiation between DeFi for payments and just crypto for payments. One thing is to, without DeFi, you can do instant payments worldwide. You don't need DeFi for that. DeFi for what brings into the equation. Was that?
Instant?
Yes, pretty much, almost instant. Oh.
Debatable.
We can debate all you want, but
we can debate on that later.
Yeah, but what DeFi brings into the equation here is essentially a second order of magnitude for adding logic and adding business rules to payments. So, for example, when you're going to run payroll, or when you're going to do RTUs, or when you're going to do deferred payments or subscriptions, or any of those more complicated business logics, those cannot be very easily supported by Bitcoin or an individual like payment-oriented cryptocurrency, and that's where DeFi kind of takes role and takes stage on the payments sphere. And the DeFi element into it is that traditionally, and for the longest times, all of those workflows have been very centralized, controlled by a very few companies. And it is extremely difficult for any one of those companies, whether that is Circle or PayPal, doesn't matter, to have jurisdictional representation in every single jurisdiction in the world. And DeFi, on day one, you can turn on all of those business logics that apply to a completely global money payment system, and that is first time that happens.
Yeah, so I think I work more on the Bitcoin side of things, so maybe I could just add some perspective from that side. And I think like what we're noticing in the broader Bitcoin ecosystem is that with things like Lightning, payments are becoming faster, cheaper. The Lightning network continues to grow at a steady pace. But interestingly, I think the biggest challenges remain around two things. One is that Bitcoin obviously doesn't have smart contract functionality at the base layer. That's the work that we are doing directly. I think by bringing smart contracts to Bitcoin as a separate layer, you're not going to change the Bitcoin base layer. Like that would enable things like DeFi and all these different applications where you can build decentralized exchanges, lending protocols, all sorts of other primitives that you're seeing already on some of the other ecosystems, and that can come to Bitcoin, which is by far the largest chain, the biggest pool of capital. And the second thing that I'm noticing is that I think these on-ramps and off-ramps for users are actually extremely important, right? Because once you're in crypto, once you have Bitcoin, or once you can go to USDC or something else, it's easy to move things around, But the biggest pain point remains the on-ramps and the off-ramps, right? Like the reason why I can't send money to my parents, I grew up in Pakistan, in crypto is like, well, they'll get it in their wallet, but what are they going to do with it if there's no off-ramp available to them to actually convert that into cash in the local currency?
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the benefits of DeFi payments versus like just crypto payments in general. Michel, you brought that point up. I think it's interesting, especially to differentiate between the two. So let's talk about the benefits there.
Yeah, so for us, we are like 100%. So Mean Finance is everything about DeFi. So we stand on the ethos of DeFi, fully decentralized, permissionless, trustless, censorship resistance, all of those things. There's zero custody. One of the big things is that we're essentially on the centralized payment infrastructure. You have somewhere to the order of 2,000 to 3,000 payment operators and payment gateways and payment processors all around the world that need to maintain their own infrastructure, their own coordination, their own legal teams in different jurisdictions that they cover. And all of that gets almost like swept away. And it's an instant savings because it gets basically moved over into the layer 1 or layer 2 that the DeFi application is running, that is fulfilling the same promise that those other companies are doing. So it's just instant from that standpoint alone. You have an immediate, almost instantaneous settlement layer that you can apply globally without, and it is under your own custody. You don't have to trust any other third-party company to be basically giving you a fake ledger on your phone or on the website to see what is your balance. You're dealing directly with smart contract. There is no intervention. There is no, there's other regulatory issues, of course, tornado cash type of things and things of that nature. But like in general, you're dealing with computer software, and that can run anywhere in the world instantly, and you can very clearly see what is your contract between basically your money and that computer program immediately, right? In our case, we power any business that wants to do payroll, for example, right? So if you want to run payroll for an organization like yours that has international employees all over the world, you can set up that in 10 minutes, and they will be receiving stable coins, any tokens, doesn't matter, and you can schedule that. There's a whole bunch of business rules, if you think about the way that a payroll system works, that are fairly complicated. In some countries, you pay once a month. In some other countries, you pay once every 2 weeks. In some other countries, you pay by the hour or depending on the kind of contract that you have. But the reality is that the traditional financing system is not set up to handle anything that is time-bound obligations. Every single second that one works, it is owed back to the employee. And there is no easy system right now that is not on crypto where you can 100% guarantee that you're going to get paid for those every single second that you worked, right? So those things are now being enforced on chain, and it is a guarantee that saves not only billions of dollars in operating overhead, but it also in developing countries, this is a bigger issue than in developed countries, but people completely get smoke out of their salaries by their employers, especially in a recession or when a company's going under trouble. There's people that go months without pay. That is going to be a thing of the past very, very soon, thanks to things like Mean Finance and DeFi and payments.
I don't really see yet the payroll necessarily going on as a DeFi protocol. We have employees that have different, let's say, preferences to the chains and the assets that they want to get paid in, and that's something that you either need to go completely across all chains or have a centralized platform for doing so. So I think still today a lot of people are using Binance, for example, or KuCoin to transfer out payments, et cetera, rather than being a DeFi-based platform.
Wait until they get locked out of their accounts.
Yeah, that happened actually to my friends. That happened to my friend's company. Yeah, it did with the sanctions against Russians. But I do hear that. I think in terms of DeFi and payments, it's more along the lines of automating, let's say, taxes. And I know it could be a little bit controversial, especially the whole CBDC hoopla. But if you could imagine the entire process for automating a tax revenue flow for companies, where someone just actually let's say you go and, I was about to say swipe your credit card, but I guess that doesn't apply here. But you go and you buy a coffee, and all of a sudden, your 11% sales tax in California goes straight to, the payroll office and, the IRS. So in those types of payments, I think it can be automated in that manner, more so than anything else, is automating regional payment rails.
I want to add a bit here. So I think indeed I think it's very useful to have also payroll on DeFi, for example. Honestly, as I hope our company will grow a lot, surely we'll be using something like that. As I said before, this is then building together with building blocks that can be a lending protocol and then a system like Michel is building. Because if you think like, okay, I know I'm receiving this payroll, is agreed on a contract, I can tokenize it, so maybe I can anticipate the payment and have a loan on a platform like this directly in a permissionless way, and this is helpful. And what there is underlying all of this is composability. The composability that smart contract and DeFi has. I mean, compared to traditional system, we will never achieve this. Like, it's very difficult to take, like, banking system or whatever, two different companies and make their system composable. No way. It's very complex. In DeFi, you have those standards that through the SDKs also API calls is very simple. And thanks to permissionless way of access, that just makes it so powerful.
Yeah, I think that alone is like one of the probably higher value adds of the entire DeFi ecosystem. That you can start on a payroll type of infrastructure and have every employee get a loan from the Volks Finance. That the loan is actually being provided by someone completely in the most remote place of the earth. Like, it doesn't really matter where you are. You are allowing for the movement of money, and you didn't have to ask for permission to anybody to actually participate in that economy. And all of that is happening without having to ask for permission to get an approval into the App Store or into the Google Play or into the this and that and the other, because all of the smart contracts are, look, most of them are open source, and most of these standards are open source online, accessible for anybody to build on top of them. So yeah, composability is huge.
Yeah, I think the technology definitely is there, but the financial instrument are created to make all these seamless is not there yet. For example, at the moment, the stable coins, really the biggest stable coin is still denominated in US dollar. And now we are happy because, especially our employees are very happy because US dollar just compared to, for example, euro, it has appreciated more than 20%. But think about the time when US dollar is not anymore, that dominant reserve currency. Now we need to create a lot of currency, stable coins, denominated in other currency so that your employee in Singapore or in Dubai, doesn't somehow, faced with this FX, foreign exchange fluctuation. So that's another thing I think, technology is definitely there. So anything you can write down in rules, such as payment, when, where, to whom, that's fine. The technology is definitely here. But I think, I come from TradFi. I have been 20 years on Wall Street. I think it's also all about how can you create more financial instrument and then you can insert into this technology to make the problem really solvable.
It will come. Just let's give time, and so we are doing it.
You're doing that? Great.
I think on the more stablecoins aspect, it goes by market demand. There are other stablecoins outside of U.S. denominated dollar stablecoins. I've never received one request in all of the payments that we've done for something outside of USDT, USDC, or a dollar coin. So, for example, so it's
That's
market
because
demand.
dollar at the moment is the most dominant reserve currency and also is the strongest given the current macro environment. But let's wait for 5 years. I remember when euro started, it was very, very strong. And I think at that time, euro stablecoin, the requirement will be bigger. It's all about which currency really is dominant and what people really want to receive as the asset-based currency. Right, the baguette guy next door, he doesn't want to get renminbi right now. He wants to get dollar.
Well, we've got developers that are actually getting paid in euros, but then at the rate for the dollar and USDT, they still don't want euro stablecoins. So I agree that all the technology is there, but people just it hasn't picked up. Like it's an open market, and it just still hasn't picked up. So I agree we do need it. You know, you can have like a shekel-based crypto and a dirham-based crypto, et cetera, or stablecoin, but market demand hasn't picked up.
Or maybe not stablecoin, just certain instrument that can hedge this FX risk. That's enough, right?
So I'm curious, so I was speaking with someone recently, an executive within the crypto industry, and he was saying he thinks DeFi will overtake traditional financial institutions within the next 3 to 4 years. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that that is actually possible? Do you think that it will take more time? As we've mentioned, the technology is there, but you know, is the traditional financial world ready for this?
You want me to take
Sure.
that, Rachel?
Yeah.
Again, the blockchain technology and crypto is just so much more superior than what the current traditional finance system is built on. This is a century-old models. I started my Wall Street career 1998. So I was head of quant at Credit Suisse, and then I was head of quant at Morgan Stanley. When I started joining the trading floor, that was a Russia default and LTC and over-leveraging. And then after all this crisis with lots of iteration, regulatory iterations, what has bank become, or this banking industry become, is completely overblown middle and back office and compliance, because regulation and all this compliance seems to be the only way they can impose to banking industry so that the people don't over leverage. Whereas in blockchain and crypto, you just don't have this problem. You see your there's just no counterparty risk. But I think so again, I want to emphasize that, bear with me, that technology there, but we are facing lots of headwind. And number one is, I think Rachel would want to ask this later, but if I may say it right now, is our headwind is really regulation. Right, number one. And our second headwind is really education. Regulation, what I mean is that there's no regulatory clarity at the moment. I mean, all of us sitting here, we are builders, we are founders, we are in the highly innovative sector. We don't have 10 lawyers sitting in our office, and when Gensler say, oh guys, DeFi people come to talk to us, come to, chat with us. Let's see if you're security or not. I mean, we don't want that. I hope my co-panelists agree with me that that's not what we are. We are founders. We are innovators. We are entrepreneurs. We want you to write the regulation very clearly, and then we can be compliant. So I think that's the headwind that we are all facing. That's why I don't think in 3-4 years DeFi can replace TradFi. There are a lot of services, a lot of solutions that DeFi already at the moment is much more superior than TradFi. That for sure will come to DeFi. But a lot of things that it won't come just because of the regulatory headwind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes. And I think the answer is simple. There will be an integration of those two words. Someone will accept the rules of the other side, and someone else will see the benefit of integrating a better, more efficient system. And why not? I mean, I don't think it's that difficult. I mean, as soon as there will be enough level of transaction that they are losing too much money, they will say, okay, now it's time to take it over.
At the last LA Blockchain Summit, I basically said, we had a very similar question actually, and I said that DeFi could just actually become the next set of institutions. And over the last year, my answer to this question has actually changed. I think the future of DeFi for becoming institutionalized is more geared towards what I, leaning on talking about in the sense of open finance. I think regulation is going to kick in, and pure decentralized finance is going to make way for a more open finance that works within regulation. I also think that your average person doesn't want custody over their own assets, and we need to move very far away from having seed phrase-based wallets. And there's multiple ways around that with smart contract wallets, MPC-based wallets, DSS, single sign-on, et cetera. But DeFi for overtaking institutions, probably around 2030 rather than 3 to 5 years. So I would say that the timeline needs to be pushed a bit, but But the future is definitely going to be based on blockchain. I don't know how decentralized it's fully going to become in terms of overtaking institutions simply based on, it's hard for me to get my parents to remember their Binance password. I can't imagine a world where they're self-custodying their own paychecks and making payments that way.
I think at a more macro level, there's almost like a bifurcation of the future, the way that I see it, in that I don't think that the epicenter of the financial world today, the U.S. is going to just, let go all of their financial prowess onto DeFi, and it is very likely that we're going to see, kind of like the world subdivided and bridges built into it. I see, for example, there's countries like India that are embracing, and South America in general, that are a little bit more welcoming to the idea of a future that is based on DeFi and their institutions being run on DeFi. But that's because they're not the power, right? So they have nothing to, or very little to lose and a lot to gain from doing that. On the other side, when you have China that has a lot of control over their financial institutions, and the U.S. with a lot of worldwide control, it's going to be rather difficult that they will embrace DeFi as part of their legislative agenda and legal agenda. So I think that we're going to see a little bit of this three-phase world type of way that DeFi is going to be a big part of it, but not overtake all of it.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree that I think 3 to 4 years is a very, very aggressive prediction. In my mind, it's 10 plus years or so, because even just looking at some of the core infrastructure and even programming languages and the level of security in various systems, there's a DeFi hack happening every other week, right? And bridges are getting hacked, and all of these things are happening. But it's software, right? It matures. Once you have better programming languages, more kind of formal verification of some of these, the code that is deployed, and the code gets hardened over time. You can only hack the system once, then the patch comes, and if it goes through that evolution process, months and years, at some point the code is going to become much more secure over time. And the other thing I agree with everybody is regulations, right? They're not, I think DeFi to me is more it increases transparency, and everyone has better view of the risk in the system, and you can do very, very interesting things with it, even staying within some sort of a compliance framework. But given the uncertainty around a lot of the regulations, I don't think the existing players are going to just step away that quickly. It'll be a long road, but in the end, I'm very, very bullish that the technology, the superior technology always wins in the end, right? It's just a matter of how long it's going to take.
Right. Well, you make some really good points. So regulation, obviously, we need regulatory clarity in order for DeFi to advance. Also hacks and scams, that's been happening way too often, which is obviously turning a lot of these traditional financial institutions off from DeFi. But how are you guys seeing DeFi advance? Are there certain protocols being developed that are helping ensure less bugs in smart contracts, for instance? How are we seeing the industry advance so we can get to the point when it will be widely adopted?
I can take this one, because we invented a programming language called Clarity. Without going into the details, Algorand actually also uses it along with us. But the main idea is that if you look at the type of computer software that runs on airplanes, there are formal mathematical proofs for what the program can and cannot do, because you don't want to risk lives of passengers that are sitting in the plane. And I think you need that level of security with some of these smart contracts, because for the first time in history, a computer program is actually holding on to money, right? So there's a live bug bounty in the program. If someone can hack it or something unpredictable happens, people can actually literally steal money, and hundreds of millions or billions of dollars are at stake. So I think the level of formal verification and even the types of programming languages that should be used, they have to optimize for safety more than anything else. Right? So we have done one work with Clarity. It's a decidable language, meaning that before running the program, you know exactly what the program can and cannot do. right? And that's a almost like night and day difference between. ALEX is actually built in Clarity, so they can.
We are built on Clarity.
So that's like one side of it, but obviously there are like other aspects as well.
I think also like new programming languages like Move make a huge advance towards being able to represent exactly what decentralization means, because now we're dealing with, like, traditionally programming languages have been having to deal with resources that are commonly shared, like computer memory and references in code. And now you have something that can only be transferred or moved from one place to the other, a coin, a token, something like that, right? So a lot of the runtimes that we've seen in most of the L1s, all of the VMs, basically what they do is that they try to enforce those rules over a general purpose programming language, whether that is Solidity or Rust or whatever. And now we have newer programming languages like Move, being deployed now on SUI and Aptos, that are enforcing those contracts at the code level, right? So like you as a developer cannot make the mistake of trying to transfer the same resource or token or coin or asset twice, right? The programming language doesn't allow you to do that. And like Muneeb was saying, I think that all of these hacks that have been happening, at the very beginning, they were very technological in nature. If you recall, back 10 years, 5 years, most of the hacks were, someone deciphered a bug in the program that was a very technological bug in nature, like they misused a particular cryptographic proof or something like that. Now, as all of those things have been patched, the hacks have moved a lot more to social engineering type of hacks, and now we're dealing with a different kind of set of problems that I think as an industry we're learning how to cope with it, and yeah, we'll continue to evolve.
I love Muneeb's point on functional programming, because a lot of blockchains today, everybody thinks that EVM is the most important thing in the world, but it's actually, in terms of smart contract languages, Solidity is an incredibly, let's say, unsafe programming language to build a financial product on. And so that's where functional programming really kicks in, where you can check the validity of the code essentially before. Most platforms don't actually do the formal verification before they go live, but you can, for the most part, can check to make sure that the code functions as it should before deploying. And so there are, we're built in a language called Lego, and so we can check bugs before actual deployment. So it's that's one of the most important things when you're building out a financial application where there's no recourse for recovering funds. And if you look at ATMs, for the most part, they're still coded in a language called Cobalt. If you ask any developer, it's like the worst thing they've ever done in college. But it's a 40, 50-year-old language that it's ancient, but it works. And I think that's one of the most important things when it comes to understanding DeFi, is that it's not necessarily the widespread amount of developers that there are in the world. It's about the security of the platform and building a small team. You don't need 1,000 people on your dev team to know X language. You need a handful of extremely knowledgeable people in a very secure code base, because once you actually build out these DeFi the DeFi systems, they're for the most part automated. So it's best to do it in a way that you have an absolute surety of the security of your code, rather than choosing a blockchain or a language where you just have a wider spread amount of developers, and then you have just unsure code. It's probably the worst financial process to move forward. Is like, hey, we're going to choose an unsecure code language.
And we are talking a lot about bugs on the code, hacks that can act just directly on the code, but what about economic exploits? So this is also a main big problem, because even though the language can evolve, but this is also a human error. And that's very important when we think about DeFi, because it's all mathematics formula that can have potential exploits, also oracles.
Yeah.
It's a big subject, but I can give you my experience as a founder. So we really care about security, and we did 3 audits on the protocol from 3 different firms. Even it costs a lot, but better to pay than pay later. And as well, an economic review, because it's important that someone that does this financial math is reviewing it. Is not just hackers that are good on finding bugs on the code, but what about the mathematical side part of it? It's very important as well. So it's, as we said, more those things will stay alive and will be proven to be right, and more it's safe, and more we have advanced tool to build, and everything will be easier and better in the future.
Yeah, I want to say that code is one thing, technology is one thing, but the protocol design is another thing. And I think Benedetto was pointing this out. For example, the Mongo exploit. I mean, it's like a crime novel when you read that story, right? And it has nothing to do with the security of the code or the protocol. It's really the design issue. So if you have illiquid token, but you offer futures, which you can leverage a lot, and then very simple, very easily, there will be just one wallet, just go and to manipulate the spot price of this token so that the future, the mark-to-market, your future value just go up like 100x, right? That's how Mongo exploited this 170 million. It's really not about the design of the code. It's really the design of this financial system, how it works. And coming from TradFi, we have seen all this. I don't know if you heard about, for example, the fixing problem. So all these derivative or options, you need to choose at any point of time, or let's say at a certain point of time, you need to choose a price, right? So that a lot of options, they can get knocked out or knocked in, just depends on this fixing price. Now, of course, everybody wants to manipulate this fixing price depending on your position. So that's something that in traditional finance, we learned a lot. In DeFi, I think we are all learning, and I like to say that, we have all these very destructive iterations, right? From Luna, Terra to Mongo, and we all learn. But, that's how it is, because with all these 1.3 billion exploit in 2022 on DeFi, there's never any time that the government or central bank had to come in to bail us out, right? So we need to iterate ourselves, and then the speed of iteration is really 100x compared with TradFi.
Right. So that leads me to my next point. We've got a few minutes left. I think that I really want to point out that education around DeFi is extremely important, and that will also help drive mainstream adoption. Do you guys have any suggestions for our audience on how they can learn more about DeFi and just enhance their education around the space?
I will tell you what doesn't work. Is that I think there's some generational gap here, because the most DeFi user at the moment are 20 to 40. For example, in Southeast Asia, 70% of the population that use DeFi is between 20 and 40, and they use a lot. Whereas thought leaders at the moment in our world are not so much crypto, blockchain, or DeFi users. And sometimes it breaks my heart to hear these people, on the one hand, they think DeFi or, crypto is a scam, is Ponzi game, but in the same breath, they will talk about, the fiat money, the money system doesn't work, right? So at the end of the day, really, DeFi is here for the ethos. Is about, you want to trust money again, but you want to be your own sovereign. That's what DeFi is about. So I think from an educational point of view, I don't know how to do it, but I know we all have to do it in a better way. It's really, just to explain DeFi in a very, very simple way. And again, I'm also part of the a contributor that not contributing enough, is that we like to talk in our own languages, and most of the DeFi at the moment founders are developers. You have a saying that you can be a great butcher, but you are not. It doesn't mean you are a good surgeon, right? So we need more different kind of people coming to our industry. They can come from traditional finance. They can come from, economists should come to design, better tokenomics, for example. I mean, I'm just so excited about tokenomics because that's really the opposite of traditional finance, right? We want to decentralize as fast as possible through tokenomics. We want to share our revenue as fast as possible, right? But the tokenomics is still not well explained. So there's a lot of things that we all need to do it together better, I think.
I just want to add something quickly. I don't think for mass adoption we really need education, I'm sorry. But for mass adoption, we need just simple tool. So there is no way I'm going to teach my father how to use Fox Finance, even though we try to make it as simple as possible. As soon as the tooling will be simple, you don't need to store your seed phrase. And it's happening already now. It will be simple, intuitive as doing anything else. No one taught us how to use Facebook. We just started to use it. And it was innovative, it was high tech. That's it. And I think that's the real change for.
Although I agree with you that it is, I don't think it is like our job to necessarily like teach DeFi. I do think that it is a huge milestone for everybody to understand the principles of DeFi. Because it doesn't matter how easy the tooling is. If there is a not only generational, but there is a like mankind shift in the way that you think about who's responsible for your money, right? And this, like, we're in a pivotal moment where we're going from big daddy government is going to take care of me, or I take care of myself, and that is a very important shift. And I would recommend anybody to just like come into this space with the humbleness of knowing that there's a lot to learn, and that you're not going to get it on day one. Join a lot of very good educational communities. Bankless HQ is a very good one, for example. They do a lot of educational content. There's 100 other communities out there that are always pushing very high quality content and explaining people how to get into the space and how to change that perspective and that mindset about you being the owner of your own financial future. And I think that is, and of course, us as builders need to build better tooling, easier tooling for everybody to use.
I agree there. I think there's a huge generational gap in self-accountability across all of society today, but that's why people prefer Celsius over Curve, for example. But I think we need to break down education into two different aspects. There's a user perspective and there's the developer team perspective. And from a user perspective, blockchain makes it easier than ever to jump into the puddle of financial products. So, if any of you here are looking to get into DeFi deeper, go to Binance Academy, read the plethora of articles there that are extremely well laid out for beginners. And also you can play around with $10, and it's never been easier to test something than it is today. From the team, developer, entrepreneur perspective, we need less developers being CEOs. We need more entrepreneurs that are able to understand who their users are, and that seed phrases won't become the mainstream adoptive way of self-custodying your own funds. So we need to also get developers and projects to a point where they understand how it's easy for users rather than what the tech can provide. The tech is there, the tech works, we know that. We need to build products for people and not build products for a niche amount, small amount of people who are willing to actually jump through hoops and hurdles to understand it. But we need to build for people to make it as simple as just tapping a button and not, write down these 24 words or you're completely screwed.
Yes.
That's it. I think I agree with people. Nothing more to add.
Okay, great. Well, we're out of time. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And we are available if you want to chat with us after the panel for additional questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.